The Oklahoma Sooners, they got their guy.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the College Football Playoff. The College Football Playoff is here, and you don't want to miss a moment of the action. The College Football Playoff, presented by Allstate, begins with 4 first-round games December 20 and 21st on ESPN, ABC, TNT, and Max. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams, and John Mateer is an Oklahoma Sooner. Amidst much worry and consternation and Miami and apparently North Carolina, according to Toby Rowland, the Oklahoma Sooners got their guy. John Mateer is an Oklahoma Sooner.
I mean, I don't like taking victory laps, but I probably should take a victory lap here. I was trying to tell everybody to stay calm, that it was good. Now, granted, that story from Toby Rowland is very fascinating that he popped on there, that in addition to Miami, North Carolina and Bill Belichick got involved late in the John Mateer sweepstakes. And then Baker Mayfield had to be that dude because, of course, it's Baker Mayfield. And why would I say, of course, it's Baker Mayfield? That's who everybody is comparing John Mateer to. And I'm not going to say that you're wrong. I'm not going to say that you're right. I'm going to say we'll see. But the way that he plays the game, he plays a little dangerously, similar to what we've seen from a Baker Mayfield. But I'm just glad that this is over. John, we've been talking about this for 2 weeks, and I know everybody in the chat is probably tired and just worn out, dropping comments about it. People weren't very happy about yesterday's conversation, and it was mainly because when is this dude gonna get it over with? Well, he's not on our timetable. We're on his. And he finally got into the portal over the weekend after he figured out and had some discussions. He flew in from Washington State, which is a cross-country flight. That's about 5 hours. He got him some rest, came late last night, today, and he got his visit in with with 2 teammates. We'll talk about them in the next segment. But John, we've got potentially our quarterback for next season with Michael Hawkins, Jet New, and hopefully somebody else.
Yeah, it seems like this was the guy that was going to be the guy all along. And just to revisit what he did in 2024, 64.6% completion percentage, 3,139 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 826 rushing yards, 15 touchdowns, averaged 4.6 yards per carry. Let's look at his big games against Texas Tech and Washington. Yes, the passing numbers against Tech are not great, 9 of 19 for 115 and a touchdown, but he did run for 197 yards in that game and another touchdown. Against Washington the next week, he completed 50% of his passes, but for 245 and a touchdown, ran for 62 yards and 2 touchdowns. So this is a legit dual threat quarterback, somebody who's going to be able to make plays both with his arm and with his legs. And I'm excited about it, man. I think that your quarterback situation is in a much better place. You've got a veteran, a guy that's played a year of college football. He's gone through some of the mental miscues that you go through as a first-year starter. And now you get to put a little bit better talent around him, a better offensive line, hopefully. Obviously, he's going to have a step up in competition in the SEC. But if he's the gamer that everybody says he is, and if he's as much a Baker Mayfield as everybody says he is, he'll be ready for the challenge.
Yeah, don't get it twisted. The performance he put together up at Washington State, we've seen that done in the SEC before. We've seen heck, go look at Peyton Thorne. He was putting up some running stats and stuff in games on a regular basis too. The only problem was he was making some decisions, or his coach was making decisions, or lack thereof. But that's not the point. John Mateer still has the opportunity to do that, but we'll see. The best part about having him, John, and this is my personal opinion, is that you now have a guy that knows the offense. He understands how everything should be ran, and he can help out everybody else on the staff, on the roster. Because now he can teach the wide receivers the plays. He can teach Michael Hawkins the plays. And that, to me, is the most important thing, is that we've got somebody that can help teach everybody and get everybody ramped up real fast.
it improves your team in a way that you needed to. I mean, going into this next season, you don't really have much margin for error. You've got to make a big jump. You can't have another 6-6 season. You can't. Nope. I think you got to go somewhere like 8-9, push for 10 wins next year to be considered a successful season.
Yeah.
I mean, you bring back a really good defense. The offense still is going to have question marks. It's going to have question marks all offseason because even though you've added a couple wide receivers that we'll talk about in the next segment, there's still going to be question marks surrounding that group, surrounding the offensive line, surrounding the running back room. And so you've solidified the quarterback position at the very least with John Mateer, Michael Hawkins, Jet New. You feel good about where you're at going into next year, regardless of who ends up being the starting quarterback. It's going to be John Mateer. Until something tells me otherwise, John Mateer is going to be the starting quarterback. He's not coming to Oklahoma to be a backup. Will there be competition? Probably, but he will be the starter. And listen, you get a veteran option, a guy that can win games both with his arm and his leg. I'm excited about this decision. And I think with Ben Arbuckle, a second year in Ben Arbuckle's system, that's going to make him even better.
Oh, yeah. A second year in the system, which actually technically his third year in the system because he was the backup to Cam Ward. So he's been there. So, yeah, and your point still stands. Multiple years in the same system, now with with probably a step up in talent, not probably – actually, no, yes, I will say that. A step up in talent, especially as we're bringing more people in here. All he needs to do is get out there and get the ball into these dudes' hands and let them work. That's the one thing that I'm really stoked about is we've got that solidified. And now, John, as we really focus on the portal and people can now commit, they know. Like, of course, there's questions behind Michael Hawkins. We've seen a little bit of him play. And so you're like, okay, he's not bad. He's young. We just need him to get better. Okay, that's going to happen. Well, from there, now they're looking back like, oh, I saw Mateer put up, 3,000 yards. He put up 3,900 yards total with 3,100 being passed and like 800 rushing. He's a gamer. He's put up 44 touchdowns. Okay, he's going to find a way to get the ball into our hands. Awesome. Now you got guys jumping on board because they're excited that there's going to be a veteran player out there in the field. So I guess the big thing now to me is it's got to be a competition. That way, Michael Hawkins doesn't feel like he's being left out in the cold. He's got to be able to have the opportunity to compete. I guess now is how many wide receivers will we be trying to pick up from the portal going forward?
Well, I think you got to continue to add depth.
Yeah.
You've got some good young guys. You've added a couple guys that we're going to talk about here in the next segment, but you've got to add a bunch of competition to the wide receiver room just to see who's going to stand out and who's going to be a really good fit for Ben Arbuckle's system and then go from there. But when you look at Mateer, what is it that you like about his game?
I like the fact that he makes decisions. He make them quick. He can extend plays. And if he knows that he needs to tuck and run based upon what the defense is giving him, he'll tuck and run. That Washington game was very fascinating to watch him play. And he lit him up for 5 touchdowns. He was out there balling from passes to runs. He was very decisive, and he was putting a lot of strain on that Washington defense. Granted, it's not the same Washington defense that played in the national championship, but still a lot of really good players in that Big Ten team. They were out there dang near winning some games against some other ones in their conference. So there wasn't a bad team. He was out there cooking them. And that game to me was the one I was like, okay, yeah, I think he's a game changer.
And that's what I think too. I think he's got the big arm that's able to make the throws down the field to help stretch a defense. And he's willing to do it. He's not going to wait for a wide receiver to be 100% wide open before he throws the ball. He's going to throw it to a place where his wide receiver can go and make a play. And he's going to trust his wide receiver to make the play. So That's the thing you like about having a veteran quarterback, somebody who's played a little bit. And again, now going into year 3 of Ben Arbuckle's system, he's going to have a lot of confidence just to be able to get out there and sling it, which is something that was a bit of an issue in 2024 at the quarterback position with Jackson Arnold, just the unwillingness to throw the ball sometimes. Again, a lot of issues on offense for Oklahoma in 2024. Oklahoma's undergoing a big reset. At quarterback, wide receiver. Let's discuss the 2 new wide receivers the Oklahoma Sooners added in the transfer portal on Wednesday, coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. It's that time of the year. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into their first matchup with SMU Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Thanks again for listening and tuning into Locked On Sooners wherever you get your podcasts. Again, we're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube, so hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oklahoma Sooners added to the wide receiver room on Wednesday with a pair of new additions. Not the R&B group from the early 90s. No, these are two wide receivers that are going to hopefully add some big-time playmaking ability to the Sooners, and that is Javonnie Gibson by way of Arkansas Pine Bluff, and Keontez Lewis. Sorry. Keontez Lewis, not Keontae.
We're both on it today.
Here we go.
No problem.
Here we go. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in and subscribing to Locked On Sooners wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube, so hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Jay, the Oklahoma Sooners added a pair of new additions to the wide receiver room. That's not the R&B group from the early 90s. No, that's two additions in Javonnie Gibson from Arkansas Pine Bluff and Keontez Lewis, who signed with the UCLA Bruins in the 2021 recruiting class, went to Wisconsin, and then ended up at Southern Illinois. Jay, what does this mean for the Oklahoma Sooners wide receiver room?
Oh, that means that you're going to see some additional growth here. That's what you're looking for. Javonnie Gibson gives you a big frame wide receiver, 6'3", 205. And yes, he came from Arkansas Pine Bluff. But let me explain why you should still feel some excitement there. Because not only have we had a player from Arkansas Pine Bluff transfer into Oklahoma that you all really much beloved, but also the leading receiver in the SEC last season came from HBCU ranks, from those ranks. So first off, the player that you all beloved, Mark Bradley, y'all remember him? He played here at Oklahoma, wore number 1, had an outstanding game against Oklahoma State. I think he had like 3 touchdowns in that game. Absurd. Anyway, he's from Pine Bluff, Arkansas, played at Arkansas Pine Bluff, and transferred into OU. So that was a big one from the early 2000s that you got. And then, of course, Andrew Armstrong. We talked about this in the green room not too long ago. John, the leading receiver in the SEC. So players come from all walks of life to get here. And I think Javonnie's one of those situations where he was just not looked at. The evaluation wasn't there. He was there for a year. Then last season he played. The statistics are absurd. John, I know you're going to share that in a second. But the big thing is that if he played with us last year, he'd been open and deep like crazy there. I think that would have been one player that I know that Jackson Arnold and Michael Hawkins would have just chunked it up to and say, hey, man, just go get it. Because he's one of those guys. And him coming from, was it Opelicious? Is it Opelicious? Said it right?
I'm not going to try to pronounce it, man.
I got the YouTube video of them talking about it. I keep forgetting how to pronounce it. But anyway, that's where Keon Coleman came from. Very small town in Louisiana. And the dudes that usually come through there are usually dogs. More so, yeah, they dogs. So we got us a player that I think can ball out.
Yeah, I'm excited about the Louisiana connection. Dude, the Keon Coleman connection, that fires me up. I love me some Keon Coleman. That's awesome. I didn't know that one. No, but he was very productive for Pine Bluff, man. He had 70 catches for 1,215 yards and 9 touchdowns. He had 5 games over 100 yards receiving. 3 of those were for more than 170 yards receiving last year. So, like you said, big body guy. He's 6'3", over 200 pounds. And this is one of those moments where I think it's a kid that just went under the radar. He was underevaluated. He had no stars coming out of high school. And I was talking to a D2 coach actually at my daughter's picking up my daughter from school today. And we were just talking about the transfer portal and all that. And we are just talking about how a lot of times, like, these are the kids that would end up at a D2 school and stay there, or an FCS school and stay there and never really get that opportunity to go to the big time because the transfer portal was non-existent, or he'd have to sit out a year before he went to a big time program like Oklahoma. But this is kind of where the beauty of the transfer portal comes in, is that he's got an opportunity now to go earn a job at Oklahoma. Now let's talk Keontez Lewis. This is a kid that's very fascinating. He's a 3-star prospect that signed with UCLA out of the 2021 recruiting class, transferred to Wisconsin, had a solid year with Wisconsin in 2022. But then after they hired Luke Fickell, following that season, kind of fell down the depth chart a little bit, only played one game, and then entered the transfer portal in September of 2023 before landing at Southern Illinois. And again, he had a productive season for the Salakis. I think I'm pronouncing their mascot name. Yeah, I don't know what we're doing there. I'm guessing it's some Native American tribe up there that I'm not familiar with. But he had a productive year, 49 catches, 813 yards, and 5 touchdowns. You shared some of the film against BYU on social media. He had 2 catches for 49 yards against the Cougars. So another really intriguing prospect that gets added to the Oklahoma Sooners wide receiver room.
Yeah, very much. And it's Opelousas. I was right. I went ahead and listened to that just a second ago. But no, I think it's fascinating in pointing that out that, I was talking to Colin Kennedy over there, 247 earlier. And it's funny, there's a statistic out there that like 60 or 70% of the dudes entering the portal have been at like 2 or 3 different schools. So you see a lot of movement. And in some of them, like in this situation, it seems like they get trapped in a situation where they keep getting new coaches. Mm-hmm. Right. They're at a place. They think they're settled. New coach comes in. Like, I don't fit what they're doing. Go to the next school. That coach gets fired. So no longer fit in the system for that guy. And you keep moving around. So you get unfortunately left in the shuffle. And a lot of players end up in that situation. It's not good for them, unfortunately, but he's still been able to be productive. And so he's another sizey guy. Yeah. Well, he's 6'3", as well. So it seems like we have a type when it comes to when we're recruiting wide receivers. We don't see very many small guys, or I guess you could say quote unquote gadget guys, slot dudes that we're really picking up. I mean, you still got Deion Burks, 5'9", and still a freak as far as just his strength and his ability. But you're starting to see that they're going after big body dudes that they're hoping to be that number one guy on the outside. So adding this veteran, and he's only got 1 year left of eligibility. I kind of noticed that too, that you're really only seeing guys with 1, maybe 2 years, kind of matching them up to the John Mateer timeline, so that as soon as Michael Hawkins is, he's primed and ready to go, he's coming up with all of the young wide receivers that he's working with all the time to where they have that instant chemistry. But I love Lewis's game. Like I say, he's another guy that's big, catch it up, catch it deep, catch across the middle. I can tell that we do have a type.
Yeah, it's good to add that size. You got to have some of that to hold up to some of the physicality that comes in the SEC. Yes. And what I like about these 2 additions is they're guys that, again, have some collegiate production, albeit at the FCS level, but you're getting them as they're ascending, right? They're not guys that have been just sitting on the bench for the last couple of years that had high star ratings, but just haven't played and produced. Would you like to listen? You have those guys on your roster right now, right? You have the Zion Kearney, Ivan Carrion. You've got Elijah Thomas and Emmanuel Choice. You got Zion Reagans. You got a walk-on and Jacob Jordan that you really, really like. So you've got enough guys that haven't really created a lot of production that you want to continue to develop, but you needed some guys with experience. Again, it's FCS, but it's experience, right? It's that whole scene from Thanos talking with Loki, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not
experience is experience.
Experience is experience. It doesn't matter if it's FCS or D2 or Group of 5, it's experience, and that kind of stuff matters. And I wonder if you'll start to see more of that kind of thing, where a guy was playing like in Keontez Lewis's instance, where he's playing at the Power 5 or Power 4 level. It's not really working out, so he drops down a level, goes, plays, kind of like in baseball, right? Things aren't really working out at the big leagues.
Yeah.
You go quote unquote to the minor leagues. You kind of refine your game a little bit, and then you get back up to the show before you have your kind of big breakout. So I wonder if you'll start to see that more and more, because sometimes going from Power 5 and didn't really work out to another Power 5 team, a lot of times it doesn't seem to work out great in most instances, but that's not to say that that's going to be the case. But the other thing I like about this is that it doesn't automatically lock you into a starting 3. Deion Burks is going to start for you because if he's healthy, he's just that dynamic of a player. But the rest of your wide receiver rotation, it's kind of up for grabs, and you're going to allow competition to kind of just determine who's going to be the starters on the outside.
Yeah, exactly. No matter what it's going to be the guy that steps. It's going to be the next man up type situation. You're going to need the player that steps up and wants the job and will be willing to go in and take the job. And that's probably what we're going to be looking at here with these players. And so adding to veterans statistically that put up actual production and numbers. I saw somebody posted on social media, and I had a debate with a few other people about it, and I thought it was intriguing. They said that if you notice, you'll see coaches that are more willing to go after guys in the lower divisions that have actual production rather than guys that are coming from the P4 and didn't play, that have no production. And that's kind of where you see the excitement more because, one, there's a lot more guys that are probably in the lower division with a lot of production that's trying to find a way to move up to continue to prove themselves. And then you have the guys that haven't gotten production for whatever reason they didn't, if it's injury, if they just didn't play. There's multiple reasons why they didn't get it, but they're there also and available. And so it's like, okay, which one would you prefer? Would you want a guy that's actually been out there and shown that they can run routes and make things happen, or a guy that has been in practices at the P4 level but didn't do anything? To me, I kind of want to see the production and see if it feels like that translates easier because they've had a taste of what it is to get those numbers, and now they know what they need to do or refine in their game to keep doing it.
Yeah, I think you go with the guys that you know that you're developing, and then add guys with production. And again, neither of these guys are going to be progress stoppers. And I feel the same way about Luke Buklenko, the offensive lineman that they brought in. Good player, but not necessarily somebody that's going to keep somebody like Jake Taylor, Jacob Sexton, or Logan Howland from having an offensive tackle job, or Michael Fasusi or Ryan Foje. Like, it's just best man wins. Just create competition, let the best man win. The Oklahoma Sooners, though, might not be done offering off or bringing in offensive tackles or wide receivers. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So the FanDuel Sports app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, college football, and more. So like right now, if you're looking at NFL action, we've got some pretty good games coming up. You got Denver and the Chargers in your Thursday night one, with the Chargers being a -2.5 point favorites. If you feel like they can do it, try your odds on FanDuel. And so if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the live stats and everything. So you can just go to FanDuel.com to get started today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So if you pick one of those teams and you win, you get that bonus. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And Prize Picks is going to make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get your real money action while watching your favorite sports. Prize Picks is the best way to get into the game in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, and Florida. You can join now because the holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December. And they're giving away $30 million plus in rewards doing Picksmas is what they call it. And so if you start with your lineup, looking at NFL action for this weekend, Josh Allen at 236.5 passing yards. You can take the more on that or the less. All you got to do is pick 2 or 3 players. Bo Nix, more or less on half a passing touchdown. That's got to be a simple one. So you can check them out. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Rule your game.
Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oklahoma Sooners are in the market still and pursuing several players on the transfer portal radar. A couple offensive tackles might be buzzing towards Oklahoma. One, Derek Simmons of Western Carolina, Corey Robinson, Georgia Tech. Jay, do you think Oklahoma's going to have a shot at either of these guys?
I know that we could use an additional veteran on the offensive line, and at this point, you probably want to go after some of the big name players. Coming from Georgia Tech with Corey Robinson, hey, he's a beast. And I know that he tweeted something out about Oklahoma, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. I didn't get to catch what it is, but maybe he's visiting, maybe not. But I'll tell you this, if we can get him in town, with John Mateer in town right now, you probably going to close him. Because it seems like John is like closing everybody that he's on campus with, right? You got 2 wide receivers that popped up right before he gave his final commitment, which, funny enough, you see the picture that John Mateer used on that commitment that they had? It was July 12th, 2020, as in him being on campus. As a picture from him visiting campus. Craziness. So that's probably a tool being used to close on some of these deals. Like, hey, man, if I would have came to Oklahoma if they had recruited me back then. Luckily, the new regime is here, and they're recruiting me. You should come here, too. So, Corey Robinson gets to this campus, there's a good chance that man go get closed like a used car salesman. He's going to be walking out with high interest on that one.
Yeah, Corey Robinson in 278 pass block snaps, only allowed 5 pressures and 0 sacks for Georgia Tech. Now, not necessarily the most pass-happy, pass-centric offense in the ACC, but a pretty good passing offense nonetheless. They had some big-time performances this year over there at Georgia Tech. Derek Simmons, 417 pass block snaps, 11 pressures allowed, and no sacks, according to Pro Football Focus. And they might not be done in the wide receiver department as well, as they might be pursuing one Isaiah Satania of Arkansas, a dude that was very productive for the Razorbacks in Bobby Petrino's offense. He had, what did he have? A little over 300 yards receiving. And sorry, I had it and then I lost
37 receptions, 491 yards and a touchdown. Isaiah Satania.
And that one touchdown might not sound like a lot, but Andrew Armstrong, who had 1,140 yards, also only had 1 touchdown on the season.
Which is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah,
it just seems like all their,
Yeah, the passing offense at Arkansas was just weird this year. So I like that they're being aggressive. They need to be. They can't afford to lay back and just wait on development. I get we want to develop our own. In a year or an off season where you just came off of a 10-win season, or you're going to the college football playoff and you like where you're at offensively, then by all means continue to develop your own. But when you've had arguably the worst offense that you've had in 25 years, no, I'm not even going to say arguably, when you've had the worst offense you've had in 25 years, you really can't afford to sit back and rest on your laurels. You've got to be aggressive in the marketplace to try and retool it and make it better the following year, because you can't afford, especially for Brent Venables, you can't afford another 6-win season at Oklahoma.
100%. You can't afford it. You need it. And so with Isaiah Satania, which is interesting, he is on campus right now. I see it here on the social media. There's a picture from his Instagram showing he took a picture of the OU facility as he was walking in. So he's here visiting as we speak. So as you're watching this video this morning, he's probably spending the night and going to walk through everything a second time. And the funny thing is that he's actually there with someone that he saw on the field this season, on Javonnie Gibson. They saw each other. Arkansas Pine Bluff played Arkansas. And you had Isaiah Satania get a punt return for a touchdown in that game, in which that's what you would get him for. Fascinating enough, he doesn't fit the type that we've been going after, John. This is a little bit different. He's 5'11". That's why I was like, huh. But he does return kicks. And I think that's way more important than anything else. 5'11", 185. We need a dude that can make the return game happen. And so since he's in town doing his visits, meeting John Mateer, and John's probably telling him, hey, man, I had a dude named Chris Hudson like you when I was up at Washington State, and I can make you even better because, Chris is really good, and he didn't want to follow me, so I'm going to make you even better than what he did. You should go ahead and come here and add to this great room. I'm totally here for it.
Yeah, the Oklahoma Sooners are being aggressive in the marketplace, and they've got to be. And they're doing so at positions like offensive tackle, quarterback, where there aren't a plethora of legit starting dudes. At wide receiver, there's a bunch of really good players out there that you can work with. Washington State's done it the last few years, not with these big household Biletnikoff award-winning names, but they're just making it happen because Ben Arbuckle's system is going to create options and opportunities for guys to get open and catch the ball. So very fascinating, very intriguing. We'll see where Oklahoma heads. We got several more days of the transfer portal window coming, especially over Christmas break. We might see more buzz towards the Oklahoma Sooners as well. This weekend might be another big weekend for transfer portal news as well. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports, myself at John 9 Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all your social media platforms. Follow Jay over on YouTube as well at Unfair Sports. And you can read my work covering the Sooners at SoonersWire.com. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer
Sooner.